Hi everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon, depending on the location you're joining in from. You're welcome to the TEDx Metama webinar on Angel Syndicates and why they are the future of startups. I know that we have over 200 persons registered for this webinar, and we have people from different locations, the US, the UK, Africa, and other places. So we are bringing in today for this session Mr. Abdul Golden. Abdul is the founder of Angel Angels and also the managing partner at Shujaa Capital. Today he'll be taking us through the ride on Angel Syndicate. Abdul has experience as a founder himself, working within the tech sector, and then towards the other side of the table as an investor who has been investing in startup through angel investing, and now he runs an Angel Syndicate. So first off, if you are joining us, we want to know um, where your location is, where you're joining in from. Just um, your first name, just your name, your startup name, and your location. If you are an investor trying to explore Angel Syndicate as an option, you can just give us your name and maybe your company name. I'm sure you might be able to network or connect with a couple of startups and other investors here. So we're waiting for you guys. Let's see those here. So while we're waiting, let's move over to Abdul. Hi, Abdul. Good to have you here.
Hello, hello. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great. So while we're waiting for the audience to introduce themselves, we want to hear more a bit about you, your experience as a founder, and what made you to decide to go into angel investing and angel syndicates as it is.
Yeah, I have about 25 years in the tech space behind me. As you can see, I have a little bit of gray hair here, so I've been around the block a few times, as they say. Um, and so throughout my technical career, I've always done angel investing, here and there and on the side. And as I progressed through my founder career and my technical career, and just kind of evolved kind of out of those stages, I decided to focus on investing in startups on a full time basis, and and so that's what led me to form my venture capital fund, Suja Capital, as well as my angel syndicate, Agile Angels. And it's funny because I actually formed a VC firm first, and I did it with a very particular purpose, really to help solve or help address the funding gap that African founders have, that Black founders have, and in doing that, I realized that's only part of the problem. That's kind of a downstream issue. Um, but before most startups can even get to the point to get to the level where they can be visible or attractive to a VC, right? They have to start and get going. And a lot of times, African founders, Black founders are not able to do that because they have a hard time getting some of that initial funding. And that's what led me to start my Agile Angels Angel Syndicate to help on that end of the problem as well. And I think we're losing Pascal. Looks like he may have be having some network problems. So hopefully he comes back here pretty soon. I don't know if I'm the only one seeing this or if everybody's seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. Looks like Pascal having some network issues. Yep, and he's gone. So I'll just hang out here and just wait for him to join back. And I'm seeing in the chat that people can hear me and see me, but our host is no longer here. So I guess we'll just hang out and wait for the host to come back. And I can't even join the chat because you have to connect to YouTube to join the chat. There he is. He's back.
All right, you back? Now?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you now.
Okay. So I think it's my network.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. You're still a bit choppy.
Okay. I think we have a couple of founders here. Abdurrahman, product manager and co-founder, currently building Dent now, Africa's first AI-powered oral health assistant, joining from about Nigeria. Good to have you here, Abdurrahman. Also have so we already 7 minutes past our start time. So let's get to the business of today while other founders are joining in. So Abdul, back to you. What exactly is Angel Syndicate and how does it differ from other traditional mode of investing like angel investing and VC funds?
You're breaking up a little bit. I didn't hear the last part of the question. Can you repeat that question?
Okay, so I'm asking, what is angel investing and how does it differ from, what is Angel Syndicate and how does it differ from angel investing and VC funds?
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're all related. They're all close cousins. An angel investor is an individual that invests in startup companies. A VC firm is a professional company or professional organization that invests in startup companies. And an angel syndicate is basically a collection of individual angel investors. And so those are the three definitions of what all those means. Normally, the angel investor is kind of first person up, so to speak, when startups are first raising, whether they're a pre-product or raising for MVP or what have you. They normally would raise with angels first. Well, more than likely, they're going to raise with friends and family first, and then quickly move to angels after that. And angels could be individual angels, individual people that may invest, or they may deal with an angel syndicate, which is a collection of people that invest together, normally led by a lead investor. And that's typically where the first money comes from for a lot of founders. And this is typically way before a VC would ever get involved in most cases.
Thank you very much. Explanation on the difference between a VC, an angel investor, and angel syndicate. I hope those that are joining here that are new to the sector, they're able to know the definition of angel syndicate as it is. So back to you, Abdul. You built angel syndicates across 2 continents or 2 sides, Africa. In fact, we are still coming back to the question why you prefer to circle back to Africa. Yes, you are black. a color, but you are not black as an African, right? I think we should go to that question first. So, what made you want to come back to Africa to invest, or what made you choose Africa as your place of focus in terms of angel investing?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I get that question a lot. So I'm from the U.S., born and raised. Um, I don't have any known familiar ties to the continent. Obviously, I have ancestral ties, but no known familiar ties. Born and raised in Michigan, where my whole family resides. But I moved to Addis Ababa in 2021. And I had traveled, I had been to the continent before, like as a tourist. But when I moved to the continent in 2021, it was a completely different experience for me. Obviously being a tourist and living in a place is two totally different types of experiences. And so as I, kind of acclimated myself to the continent, I did a lot of traveling around the continent when I first moved there. And to be honest, I just really fell in love with it. And I saw the opportunity, but I also saw the challenges. And, you know, I just felt like that, you know, I could do more than just be a resident, that I could lend my experience and expertise, to try to have some type of impact. And so that's what led me down the investment route. And that's kind of what led me to what I'm doing today. And in terms of why the focus is Africa related, is because just recognizing the opportunity, but also recognizing the challenges and the needs. And so, okay, somebody has some music or something playing, but yeah, but just the whole landscape of opportunity and challenges was just very interesting to me. And it was just something that I wanted to be a part of in a meaningful way, right? And so, yep, that's what I'm doing. What I'm doing today.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. So, just as a follow-up question, are there advantages of getting investment from any syndicate versus just a VC firm or an angel?
Yeah, I mean, just like with everything, they all have their pros and their cons, right? So I'll start with a single angel investor and just work my way to a VC investor. So, the advantages of working with either a single angel investor or angel investor vesting syndicate, which is what I said earlier, is a collection of angel investors. I think the number one advantage is that they move faster, they move quicker, right? If you're dealing with an individual angel investor, that's the sole decision maker, you know, and it's typically an individual that's doing this on the side. It's not their profession. Um, and so they don't have a lot of red tape or a lot of bureaucracy and all that stuff around it, right? So they tend to be able to move a lot quicker. The downside is, a single angel investor may not be able to invest a lot of funds, right? So you may have to go to many, many, many individual angel investors to get the total amount of funding that you're looking for. I think that'd be maybe one of the biggest downsides. Um, and I think going back to the pros, depending upon what kind of angel investor you choose to work with, it can be someone that could somehow help your startup in some way, maybe provide some expertise that you don't have that you may need. Um, and typically, this will be something that they can provide, you know, as a part of their investment. So it kind of comes with the investment. So I'll say those are the two biggest cons. I mean, sorry, two biggest pros. You know, decision makers happens a lot faster, and depending on who you work with, you can get some kind of expertise that you may be missing inside your company. So those are the pros of having a single angel, working with a single angel investor. If you're dealing with a syndicate, I think some of those pros still exist. They still are going to move faster than a VC firm typically, and and you still have the potential to be able to work with people within the syndicate that maybe can provide some expertise that you may be lacking from your firm. And so I think the advantages are still the same with the collective, but there are some additional advantages because if you're working with the collective, then there's the opportunity to raise more money from a single entity, so to speak, right? Because you have a collection of multiple angel investors working together. So, an additional pro would be that you probably could raise more funding from an angel syndicate versus individual angels. And then moving on to the VCs, um, you know, the biggest advantage would be you probably could raise much more money with the VC. The biggest disadvantage is that the VC is going to want a lot more equity, and they're going to have probably a lot more stringent requirements on you compared to, say, an individual angel. And so, at a high kind of simplistic level, I think those are the most obvious pros and cons between the three. And that's why it's really important to understand as a startup, you know, what you need based on where you are in your startup's life cycle, right? It's really important to take that assessment and be honest with yourself when you do that assessment. And when you start looking for investors, look for investors that are a good match for what you need, what you want, and where you are in your startup's life cycle. So that's a very important aspect of it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abdul, for differentiating and telling us advantages to using an angel syndicate versus a VC firm and a single angel. We've talked about the advantages. Now let's get back to the disadvantages. A couple of startups complain that they have to deal with a lot of um, relationship management when it comes to a single VC firm. Yeah, we have to be frank. Some VCs or some angels are hard to deal with. How much more dealing with a group of angels than angel syndicates? How do startups manage relationship with angel syndicates? So we are talking about the downside now. The downside of using an angel syndicate. Won't it be a startup managing too many relationships, or is the angel syndicate set up as a company? So over to you, Abdul. Hope you got my question. Number one is, what are the disadvantages of using an angel syndicate? Then how does relationship management work in an angel syndicate compared to
Yeah.
angel
So
investing?
yeah, the disadvantages are, that's is pretty much what I said before. I think that one of the biggest disadvantages of working with an angel syndicate is that you may not be able to raise as much money as you would if you were working with the VC firm. I think those are
Mhm.
one of the biggest advantages. Um, and then, depending upon the size and the scope of the syndicate, they may not be able to provide the same level of expertise that maybe a bigger VC firm may be able to provide. I think I think those are really the only main disadvantages. Um, in terms of managing a relationship, typically an angel syndicate has a lead, right? And it's normally the lead that the startup deals with, right? So, as an example, if an angel syndicate has, I'm just making up a number, if an angel syndicate has, 50 or 60 members, the startup is not expected to manage a relationship with all 50 or 60 members. That's just not how it works, right? That'd be kind of silly.
Mhm.
Um, but but normally there's a lead investor of that syndicate, and that is the person that normally is responsible for handling the relationship between the syndicate and the startup. So that's just one person that the startup would have to deal with, not 50 or 60 people. Does that make sense?
Okay, okay. Yes, yes. Thank you very much for that clarification, Abdul. So let's get back to how should a startup approach a syndicate, an angel syndicate versus a single angel investor?
I don't think it really I don't think it really changes the approach, whether you're approaching an angel syndicate or a single angel investor, because again, the angel syndicate would typically have a lead. And so it's going to be that lead that you're interacting with.
Mhm.
And so just like you want to be very thoughtful and methodical about whoever you approach for investment conversations. So it doesn't really matter whether you're approaching a single angel investor or angel syndicate or a VC firm. You want to be very thoughtful and methodical about how you approach that group or that person. You want to make sure you understand the type of investments that person makes. What's their thesis? Um, what do they like? What don't they like? Um, and you should try to make sure that whatever you're pitching is a fit for what they invest in, right? I think that's the biggest thing that kind of turns investors off the most when they get a cold DM or cold email and it's not even close to something that they invest in. And so um, I think the biggest favor you can do yourself is do your homework on who you're approaching for investments. Make sure you know what their investment thesis is, what they prefer to invest in, how much investment they prefer to make. Do some homework, and then you can use that information to have a much more thoughtful approach when you approach that investor, and that would definitely help.
Okay, thank you very much, Abdul. So he hinted something very important. You need to do your research before reaching out to investors to make sure that what you're pitching is within their area of investment. From your research, of course, you should be able to see other startups that the investor or angel syndicate have invested in, and that will help you to prepare your pitch the best. So over to you, back to you, Abdul. What trends do you see in the evolution of angel syndicates? What trends do you see in the evolution of angel syndicates?
Yeah, I think you're asking me what trends do I see in the evolution of angel syndicates.
Yes.
Well, I think the trend that I'm seeing is that I think there's like a convergence of angel syndicates and VCs. You know, VCs used to be kind of looked at as being kind of way out here, and angel syndicates being kind of way out here. But I think VCs are coming closer to what angels are. Um, and you're seeing less gigantic VCs, and you're seeing much more kind of micro VCs and much smaller VCs, which tend to function almost like an angel syndicate in a lot of ways. Um, so, I think most of the movement, I don't really see, to be honest, a lot of movement from the angel syndicate part. Um, but I do see a lot of movement on the VC side where it's the proliferation of these micro VC funds that are almost operating almost like a large angel syndicate. But I will say um, something that I do see in the angel syndicate space is that more and more angel syndicates are starting to spin up funds of their own. And so, if you think about
Mhm.
it, angel syndicates are starting to spin up funds of their own. Funds are getting smaller. And so, both sides are moving closer to each other. So, that's the trend that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Abdul, for sharing the trends that we're seeing in the angel syndicates and VCs. So, being an operator yourself, right, as an operator who was turned into an investor, what do you look for in early stage founders and their pitches when you are investing?
Personally, I look for founders that are persistent and tenacious. You know, I try to folks that won't quit. That's an important characteristic that I look for personally. Um, Founders need to know their business. They need to know their numbers, um, and then they also need to have some skin in the game. You know, it's hard to expect an investor to invest in your business if you haven't even invested in your own business. And when I say invest in your own business, I don't always mean money. It could be, sweat equity. It could be other things. But you know, I look for signs of commitment and signs that you are bought in before I buy in. And so I think those are three very important things that I look for when I'm looking at a startup for investing purposes.
Thank you very much, Abdul, for that. So you mentioned one key thing, which is skin in the game. It's funny to see startups who are chasing after investors and they've not even invested in themselves. So if you don't trust your business to invest in your startup, your family and friends do not invest in your startup. So I wonder how they expect an outsider, an angel investor, or an angel syndicate to invest in them. So for startups here, this is a very important point and a mistake a lot of startups make. They are always depending on outside funding themselves first to be able to attract outside investors
Right.
of angel. Hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up pretty bad right now.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so the question again, where do you see the future of angel investing going, especially in Africa, where infrastructure and capital access are still maturing?
You broke up during the last part of your question.
Okay, I'll come again. Can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Where do you see the future of angel investing going, especially in Africa, where infrastructure and capital access are still maturing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I see more and more people being interested in doing angel investing on the continent. And I'm talking about, you know, uh, locals to the continent as well as foreigners to the continent are showing more interest in investing at the angel levels. And I think the trends that we've been seeing over the past couple of years will continue. And that's, you know, angel investors being some of the early funders of startups that are solving uh, important problems on the continent. I think you will see an expansion of angel investors funding those founders. I think you will also see, uh, I think there's a trending growth of angel syndicates across the continent. So I think more and more angel syndicates are kind of popping up in some of the different countries across the continent. And I think that trend will continue over the next few years.
Hmm. Talking about angel syndicates popping up across the continent, um, can you tell us about your angel syndicates at Ajo Angel and what motivated you to start it?
Yeah, I think you're asking me what motivated me to start Agile Angels. So
Yes.
what motivated me to start my angel syndicate, and I actually don't call it an angel syndicate. I call it an angel collective. I just don't like using the word syndicate, just personal. So I call mine an angel collective because it's uh, a collective of people working towards the same goal, and that goal is to fund Black startups. That is the goal, right? And the reason why I started an angel syndicate to do that is because not every company is a good fit for a VC firm. VC firms typically look for, well, from the US perspective, VC firms look for companies that can be billion-dollar companies. Um, on the continent, a VC firm may not be looking for a billion-dollar company, but they are looking for a company that can be huge, right? But every company is not going to be huge. And so those companies need funding too. And so just because they're not going to be huge, they're not a good fit for VC firms, but they still may need funding help. And so where do they go for funding help if it's not a good fit for a VC firm? Well, that's where the angels come in. Um, and so that's one of the reasons why I formed the Angel Collective, because my overall goal is to help make sure Black founders get funded, right? And so with my two organizations, I can do that at two different levels. I can do it at a much bigger level with the VC firm, but I also can do it at a different level for companies that may not be aspired to be work with the VC firm. And so that's why I started the Angel Collective to address both ends of that funding gap problem. And again, you
Okay.
know, even if a company has the potential to be a billion-dollar company or what have you, or some huge company, you know, they have to get started at some point, right? And most VC funds don't invest in, you know, uh, ideas or pre-seed, pre-revenue. Obviously, there are a few VC funds that does that, but the majority of funds don't invest in pre-revenue, pre-seed companies, and so those companies are a better fit for angel investors. And so you need both ends of that spectrum covered.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Abdul. So startups that are pre-seed and then pre-revenue. Now you've heard that you have hope to raise funds angel investors, and at least you know Abdul, and you can also reach out to him. I think I'm not quite sure. Abdul, how can startups here contact you in case they have needs today?
Yeah, they could just reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's probably the quickest way. Abdul O Golden is my handle on LinkedIn.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're freezing, Pascal.
Yeah, I said, how can startups here reach out to you for angel investing?
Yeah, I answered that question. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My handle on LinkedIn is Abdul O Golden.
Mhm.
So that's the quickest way to get to me.
Okay, okay. So guys, if you startups here, if you have need to reach out to Abdul, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn with his name Abdul O Golden. So if you have questions, we have a few more minutes to take your questions. So we are seeing some questions. So one question from the audience: what sector do you invest in, and at what level?
We really focus on investing in enterprise B2B companies. Um, that's pretty general, but anything within the enterprise B2B vertical is what we focus on. And the check size is it depends on the situation.
Okay. Okay, I think someone also asked about the check size. What are your check size? So he has answered that the check size depends on the situation. So while we're waiting for more questions, back to you, Abdul. So if you had the chance or a magic wand to change something or to rewrite the rules of startup investing today, what would syndicate powered investing look like 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. If I had a magic wand, what would Angel Syndicate investing look like in 5 years? I think that's what you said.
Mhm.
Um, Selfishly, I would say it would be a much faster way to do due diligence. That's what I would say. If I can just wave a magic wand and have something be very different in the angel syndicate, angel investing world, I would say having a much faster way without losing its effectiveness doing due diligence. That's always the bottleneck in the deal is getting through due diligence. And then, when you invest at the angel level, sometimes these companies don't have a lot of the information that you typically look for due diligence. And so that can stop the process or slow down the process tremendously, while they gather whatever they need to gather. So that's what I would say. I would say if I can wave a magic wand, I would say somehow make the due diligence process a lot faster without losing its
Mhm.
effectiveness.
Okay. So Abdul has answered if he has a magic wand to make things easier in the angel investing sector. It has to be the due diligence process.
You're
Okay,
frozen again.
so back to you, Abdul. One founder
Okay.
mistake you see too often. Okay, I'm coming again. One founder mistake you see too often among startups.
What founder mistakes do I see too often around startups?
Yes.
Um, I would say something that really bugs me personally, that really bugs me, is when a founder doesn't know their numbers. That really bugs me because how can you expect me as an investor to buy into what you're pitching if you don't even know it yourself? You don't even know some of these basic, fundamental um, facts and figures as it relates to your business. That's a huge mistake because it's a red flag to investors that you don't know the business you're starting, and you may not know the industry you're starting this business in. That's a huge red flag. Um, I'll give you an example. Um, I was on a pitch just this week, and I asked. It was the two founders was on a call, and I asked, what the market size was. So they had a slide that had market slide, and the typical market slide with Tam, Sam, and Sam, right? The typical market slide, um, but the market slide covered the whole continent of Africa. And so I asked them, well, you're not doing this across the whole continent. You're only doing this in your particular country, right? And they was like, yes. And I said, okay, well, what's the market size for your country? And they didn't know it. They didn't know the answer. And so, you know, that's a humongous red flag. So it's mistakes like that that kills deals and kills founders' credibility.
Thank you very much, Abdul. So, founders, he has mentioned one mistake he sees among founders that come to teach. You need to know your numbers, not just the market size, everything that has to do with the numbers and the basics for your startup, the cost of acquisition, and every other thing in between. Like these are the most basics. These are the most basics that every startup needs to know. So let's get to the final questions while we are rounding up. So, what's your best advice for first-time angel investors? If there are people here, maybe people in the finance sector or people who want to get into angel investing, what's your advice for them?
My advice for people who want to do angel investing, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Um, my my first piece of advice is um, connect with somebody that has been doing angel investing for a while so that you can learn from them. And obviously, it's important to pick somebody that knows what they're doing. Don't pick someone that doesn't have a clue. But try to shadow someone who who has done this well, instead of just trying to learn it yourself or learn by trial and error, because that's going to be very costly. It's going to be very frustrating. So to avoid that, I would say either try to connect with an angel investor that has had some success in doing this and learn from that person, And then you can also connect with an angel syndicate in your area that may provide training. Some angel syndicates provide some type of training or courses where you can learn before you do investing. So that's what I would suggest. Don't just start writing checks. If you've never invested in companies before, try to build up some skill or at least some knowledge. And then as you start to practice that knowledge, that's what can build up into skill. But try to learn from someone first, try to get some training first, and then apply that learning and apply that training when you start doing investments.
Okay, well, speaking of knowledge and education in terms of angel investing, is there a recommended place or course that you would suggest for um, first-time angel investors?
Yeah, my I'll start with mine first. My Angel Collective is an education first collective. So when people join my collective, they have to go through some training first before they can invest. And we do this so we can make sure that the members of our collective actually have some type of fundamental knowledge about how to invest. And so we think that's the
Mhm.
responsible thing to do. And so Agile Angels, you can learn through Agile Angels. Um, and then, some of the bigger tech ecosystems on a continent have a few large angel syndicates that also offer training. Um, there's there's gosh dog it, I forget the name of it. I know of like three different angel syndicates across the continent that provide training first. I just can't think of their names right now. But one is in Nigeria, one is in Nairobi, and um, I can't think of what the other one is right now. But I can provide that information to you, and you can disseminate that to your audience.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. I think there is Angel. I've even forgotten. I think there is Abuja Angel Network. Sorry,
There's a yeah,
Africa Business,
there's a
Africa
Lagos
Business.
Asian networks. Yeah, yeah. There's quite a few across the continent for sure, but not all of
Okay,
them
so
provide training. Not all of them provide training. Only a few of them actually provides training also.
yes, yes, yes. There's another question from the audience. How can how can connect to them? I think it means how can we connect to them because I don't know anyone who does angels and syndicate capital. I'm not sure what this person means. So I'm thinking he's asking
He's
how can he connect with angel investors and syndicate capital.
that's what he's asking. Yeah. So I know a few. I can provide those names to you, and then you can disseminate them out to the audience.
Okay, okay. So I think he already mentioned Femi Femi. I think he already mentioned you can connect with him on LinkedIn. He runs Adore Angels and then he does angel investing. So you can reach out to Abdul on LinkedIn. You are free to reach out to him using his name on LinkedIn. So the final question before we wrap up. So what's your advice? So this question is in two phases, but it's one question. What's your advice for one first time angel investors here who are exploring how to startups here who are looking to raise from angel investors? You got my question, Abdul. Did you get my question?
No, you were breaking up, so I didn't hear the full question.
So the final question, which is the passing thought here,
You're frozen. Yeah, well, I can say it looks like Pascal is frozen. If you guys want more information about Angel Syndicates or want to connect with me about any other thing, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. Abdul Golden is the handle. Send me a message, and then I'll help out anywhere that I can. And I guess I'll wrap us up. And so, thank you guys for joining us today. And maybe we can be in touch. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or need me to point you in any direction in terms of angel syndicates or what have you. So thanks for joining. I appreciate the conversation. And so I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Network. Hey, network. Hi, Abu, can you hear me?